The purpose of this video here is to give you a really sort of comprehensive demonstration and look at how Scratch is used and how you do your coding in Scratch. I'm going to sort of go from a very blank canvas to something that may resemble sort of a fairly polished project at the end. And I'll just sort of go through it methodically, try to speak through all the things I choose from and what I do. And so here we go. So hopefully after your lessons the last couple of days, you're getting a little bit used to Scratch, and you know that under these colored dots over here, you sort of choose what you're interested in having your code do next. Like motion is always under blue, and you can see you can move and rotate and go to positions. You can then go to purple and change the looks of some things, and you can just sort of browse through here whenever you're stuck or have an idea and see if one of the blocks that you see would help you with what you're doing, and of course try that and see if it will. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And of course the code goes here in the center region right here, and the sprite or the object that we're looking at is always over in this upper right corner right here. So just to go through the maximum sort of flexibility of Scratch, I'm even going to delete the cat. So bye-bye poor cat. I'm not going to use the cat at all. We've probably seen enough videos with the cats in them. And so what I'll do is I can just choose my own sprite by clicking this button down here, and it'll bring up a bunch of sprites you can choose from, and many of you have already done this. I'm going to go to sports here and just choose a football player. So there we go. And furthermore, in sort of my story here, I think I would like to change the backdrop. White's a little plain, so you can always choose the backdrop here. And I think I'm going to try to set myself on the moon. Okay, and so I always immediately just like doing this kind of thing in Scratch because I already feel like I'm getting a little bit of an environment here. I see my very familiar football player, but of course it very much looks like a landscape of the moon that I'm used to seeing in, say, astronomy textbooks and things like that. Okay, so this is sort of how I'm going to start. So you can see my story is already well underway. Looks like I'm going to play some kind of football on the moon. All right. Anyway, so what I'll do next is start getting some code going here. And so for the football player sprite, I'm going to want to sort of always set it in the same position right here every time I start. So let's say I want to start in this area of the screen right here. Looks like that's minus 159, minus 44, 159, 44, minus 44. And so by doing so, wherever the sprite may end up, say it's over here, every time the code starts, my football player will always sort of start in this position. So it gives me a way of knowing that my sprites are always in a particular position when I start. And furthermore, I do like to start sort of my code with this when the green flag is clicked, which I'm finding under events right here. So if I put that right, snap them together like that, then every time I click the green flag, all I have going at the moment is to move my sprite or my football player back to these XY coordinates here, minus 159, minus 44. So you can see wherever the football player may be, every time I click the green flag, it goes back to that starting position. Just seems like a good way to start for reset, but of course none of this is required. And what I'll do sort of as the action in the movie that I'm going to have going here is I'll just sort of drag this forever construct out, and sort of whatever you drag in the mouth here will always forever be done as long as your code is running, or I suppose unless your computer gets turned off. And what I'll do in terms of the motion here, I'll just have it glide to some random position. So I'll tell it, hey, over the course of 1 second, time of course which you can change, just glide to some random position. So if I get going already, you can see that I'm well underway to having something, I don't know, kind of fun and interesting going here. I'll have my USC Trojan football player gliding all over the moon. And that's the reason also why I always wanted to start the football player at that home position, because I didn't know where it would end up. And if I stop like this and start over again, you see it always starts back sort of at that home position, which I kind of like. Okay. So that's it for now. And now to continue, what I'll do next to sort of start lifting that bar up in terms of what Scratch can do is let's define a variable. So this is related to a variable you might have heard of in algebra. But what I'll do is I'm going to go over here to variables, and I'm going to make a variable here, and I guess I'm going to call the variable like x. Okay. So I could keep it as x or y or x, the way you do in algebra, and that's fine. It has the same meaning. X and y, single letter variables, about all you can write with your pencil and on paper. But in this case here, because I'm going to sort of make a little game, I'm actually going to call my variable score, okay, because you can keep track of a score for me. So you can call it x if you want, but I'll just use score. Okay, so there we go. And so I have this variable called score here. It's all ready to go in this little circle right here. And I better always make sure that the score at the beginning of the game starts at 0. And by the way, you can also look over here in your action area and see that the variable is displayed up there. So I'm going to drag right into this area right here. Notice how Scratch works. When I sort of come in with this block, everything moves out of the way. It's assuming I want to insert it there, or or even down there if I want, but I want to put it up here to set not my variable equal to 0, but I'll click this drop down and say set score equal to 0. So that way that score variable is always set equal to 0 as my game starts, okay? And then what I'll do is to make a little bit of interaction in here, and this is, again, I don't just have to watch the football player, maybe I'd like to interact with it somehow. I'll go over here to events, I believe it's under, and I see this one here that says when this sprite clicked. So that tells me that if I can ever get my mouse on the football player and click it, then this block here will sort of be activated. So I'm going to draw that right next to this tower that I already have going. So it doesn't really fit in anywhere. Scratch isn't opening anything up to let me fit this in because it starts with this curved top here, and it always sort of has to be at the top of a tower because it's sort of something the code is going to watch out for. So when this sprite is clicked, well, what would I like to do? I'm going to tap into my variable here, and I'm going to say change my variable by 1. So if I go over here and snap those together, you can see when the sprite's clicked, I'll change my variable by 1, but remember my variable is called score. And so you can see what's going to happen here. Every time I go click the football player now, I should see the score increase by 1. So let's just see if that happens now. So it's almost like a little video game. So here I go. I'll try to click it. There's a click. You can see my score is going up. If I click over here, it doesn't go up. But if I happen to click on that football player, on the sprite, then I'm increasing my score. So you see, I've sort of made a bit of a video game. Okay? We'll continue this in the next video.